Well, welcome. This is the Congress of Regional Leaders, and we at the present time are going to be fortunate to hear about, I think, a topic that is growing every day in importance, and that's workforce development. Before we get started, I'm going to put you through a little bit of what I call a 20-second, 2-minute infomercial about this campus. I'm Bob Anderson. I'm Dean of the College of Business here. And for those that may not know, I'm going to give you some quick bullet points about what we do here. This campus opened in August of 2006, and currently we serve about 4,500 students. We have grown to 15 undergraduate degree programs, and you can major in about 19 areas in those programs, and we offer 9 graduate degree programs. And fortunately, I think we're taking on a new venture, and that will be in the fall of 2013, this fall. We will be entering our first freshman class, what we call FTICs. They will come to this campus, and they will be nurtured, mothered, fathered, parented, and they will be graduated. Some of the things that we like to talk about particularly is that students that graduate from this campus, we have about what we call an 80% retention rate. That means that even though they may not receive their degree from this campus, they go on and finish somewhere in the state university system. And that is a very, very high number. We have an excellent 2+2 system with State College of Florida. And I consider it one of the best in the state of Florida. 2+2 means that they come to us with 60 hours of general education. And until this coming fall, that was almost a mandate for everyone that entered our campus here. And what that means is that when they complete their last 2 years here, we are now at about a 70% graduation rate in 2.5 years. And that in itself, I think, speaks a lot for the preparation that they bring to us from State College of Florida, and then the value added that we give them when they receive their bachelor's degree. We're a small campus, but we focus on teaching. Our student to faculty ratio is 15:1. That is an excellent, excellent ratio. And about 90% of all of the profs here have their terminal degree in the discipline they teach. So we're small, we're eager, we're growing, and we're proud to be part of the economic engine of this region. So with that, I would like to now turn to introducing our panel. On my immediate left is Dave Vollrath. He is chairman of the Suncoast Workforce Board and president of TRC Staffing Services. To his left is Sharon Hillstrom, president of the Manatee County EDC, and to her left is Mark Huey, president of the Sarasota County EDC. Senator Galvano will be joining us, but the Manatee Legislative Delegation scheduled their initial meeting for this morning, but the senator said he hoped to arrive by around 11, so he will definitely be here. With that, just a few, I'll say, housekeeping. Here's the rules. Each presenter is going to have 15 minutes to present information to you, and that will be followed up by a 10-minute question and answer. And I'm going to ask you, as an audience, if you're asking a question, ask the question, and let's keep moving. I don't want it to fall behind time, but we also know that, including myself, once you get started, you tend to add about 10 questions to the original question. So one question, 30 seconds, and we'll get a response. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dale.
Well, thank you very much. much appreciate the opportunity to talk about Suncoast's workforce and its involvement in the economic development and the role it plays. Just a few words about who we are. Our mission statement is to recruit, train, and retain talent for Suncoast. We have in excess of a $9 million budget. 90% of our funds go to support programs and supporting resources. There are 24 workforce boards in the state of Florida, regions, and ours includes Manatee and Sarasota County. There are 30 board members. 10% of them are sitting at this table, okay? And I'd like to make a preemptive apology that because we work together in so many things, much of what I'm going to say that they probably planned on saying, but I say it first. So anyway, my apologies. There's some benefits of going first. Suncoast Workforce, as you probably know, has 3 career centers. Last year we served 125,000 people, and approximately 7,000 people were placed. I could go on and tell you what we do, but that really doesn't answer the question in terms of what role we play in terms of economic development. Florida's 6 strategies. One of them is that we be demand-driven, and I feel like we are certainly that. As we well know, there's a skills gap that's across our nation, and Sarasota, Manatee counties is no exception to that. Business Week, in November 12th issue, said according to the government statistics, the average skilled manufacturer worker in the United States is 56 years old. If manufacturing continues to grow as we project, and if the baby boomers continue to retire at the present rate, we could face a shortage of 875,000 workers by 2020. That would be a major problem for our economy. We would need to import workers for the highest paid manufacturing jobs rather than having our own citizens benefit. You know, that's not only true, but I feel like a lot of times they not only bring foreign workers here, but we send the work over there. As you've probably been following a little bit about Apple, the CEO, Tim Cook, basically said, I think it was yesterday, when he was sharing that they're going to do some of their manufacturing here in the United States, bring it from China. Tim was asked, why doesn't Apple leave China entirely and manufacture everything in the United States? And his answer was, it's not so much about price, but it's about skills. And those of us who live in Sarasota, Manatee County and anyway connected with manufacturing know that we have a real severe shortage of skilled workers here. It's been going on for several years, and it's only gotten worse. What happened is that people quit moving down from this Rust Belt when the prices of homes escalated 30% and keep growing. That stopped it. We had several manufacturers close doors like Hysat and Parker Hannifin when the economy was low, and these displaced workers had no place to go and they left the area. And also that there really, a lot of the older machinists had retired. So Career Edge in doing their work with different manufacturers, I mean, it became very apparent to them that we had a skills gap. They did a survey among some companies. Suncoast Workforce was involved in that survey. SAMA was involved, local manufacturers, and it really also reaffirmed what they suspected. We have a skill gap. And then they did a quantitative search, and they hired Kempton Research and Planning. And the data they received from that verifies that we have a severe problem. They surveyed 125 employers rather. 65% of those had 1 to 10 current unfilled positions. 45% had 1 to 3 jobs that were unfilled for 3 months. 11% had 4 to 10 jobs that were unfilled for 3 months. 56% of the companies said they need skilled production workers. 38% said the next 3 to 5 years, hiring skilled production workers is a top challenge for their company. They gave 3 reasons in terms of why they felt like we had this shortage. One is that students are not choosing manufacturing. This is a national phenomenon. I read a couple days ago that in a manufacturing magazine, now the top 7 business sectors in the United States, manufacturing came in next to the last of people choosing this as the career. Skilled work, a second reason, they just said skilled workers aren't available. And the third reason, they said local schools are not preparing people for the skilled workforce. The county administrator in Sarasota County basically asked the group to put together a plan to come up with dates and partners in terms of how to address this issue. Career Edge was involved, SCTI was involved, the private sector company Atlantic Mold, and then also the Suncoast Workforce Board. And feel like the results of that were pretty appropriate and amazing. What they did is immediate results. They have put together, with the help of local manufacturing, a 9-month training curriculum, and it aligns state mandates with practical skills that local manufacturers said that needed to take place. There's a commitment to hiring. The manufacturing workforce partners committed to OJT, intern programs, work experience, and then hiring them for full-time positions when they finished. SCTI allowed the space to take place at their facilities and the equipment's being ordered. Suncoast Workforce role in that also will have a satellite office at SCTI to help these students and help other students in terms of preparing for the workforce and placement things. And Suncoast Workforce will continue to be involved in connecting these students with local manufacturers in the area. I think the long-term result of this is that this is a great model. Ted Ehrlichman, COO of the Suncoast Workforce Board, was asked by the Florida 8 to basically write this up and see if we could use it in other areas. Apparently healthcare and IT are already underway in putting this together. So I feel like that's one of the things in demand-driven. There's an incredible shortage of skilled workers in manufacturing. The demand is great. I have 2 grandsons that are basically benefiting from this kind of thing. I have one that's in Seattle that's working through a 9-month program for machining. He was kind of drifting, but he gets halfway through, and his kid's bright in math. He's just unbelievably excited, and now he wants to get his BS in mechanical engineering. Have another grandson that's in an electrical program in Salt Lake City, and he always tested out high in math. He's in this program, and when he finishes, he'll be a journeyman electrician. But he has also decided that he wants to get a BS in electrical engineering. And this happens so often when young people that are kind of drifting, the lights come on, and they get excitement. We feel like the Suncoast Workforce Board, working in tandem with other organizations, can see much of that happening. We also have been involved, and this is where our partnership comes with the Sarasota County EDC and the Manatee County EDC, is helping companies that are thinking about moving, giving them reasons why this area is a great place to live and work. And one of the events in that was the Health Management Association in Venice, and they have 86 employees at their Billings office. They service 6 regions, and they were going to expand to 18 regions there with 300 employees. My understanding that they felt like that we did not have a suitable, sufficient workforce to be able to handle that. I understand Mark Huey got involved early on and began to explain that yes, we can be involved, we can handle this. Suncoast Workforce Board was called in to help in this process. We provided them with 1,000 resumes of what we felt like were good candidates for these positions. They interviewed 100 applicants, and they were able to hire out of that 35 in their decision to stay. We were involved within the OJT in the Central Billing Office. They used Suncoast Workforce to hire 18 new employees through this program. HMA will receive $400,000 in performance money, $100,000 from the Career Edge Gulf community. And they have made a goal of hiring 217 people in the next 4 years, and feel like this is one of the contributions, working in tandem with other organizations, that the Suncoast Workforce provides for our community. Had these jobs been lost, it would have been a major hit on us. But on the other hand, not only were they salvaged, but they were increased. A similar one is Densplay. And Sharon, I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, but I did get a chance. Did I? I'm sorry. Okay. But here's the good part. She can't tell you. I had an extensive conversation with the manager out there, and Brad, okay. And Brad shared with me, had Sharon not come into the office and provided the service she did, they would have been gone. And I mean, he went on and on in terms of how great Sharon was in this whole thing and what she had. I'm sorry, Sharon, but I got to share it.
Well, I couldn't say that about
That's
myself,
right. No, that's right. But I'm serious. And this was probably, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so, but I called him for another reason that wasn't the subject. But he went on and on and said that they would not be here except for EDC, Sharon's intervention at that point. But anyway, they had the great problem, the problem that everybody had liked to have. They doubled their business in 4 years, and they just ran out of space and they ran out of employees. And that the role of Suncoast Workforce was we were called in and we were to help the employee part, and Sharon can tell you about the rest. But basically, we offered a lot of different services in terms of employee screening, et cetera. We placed 10 people in their OJT positions, and these were engineers to production workers. They received a $55,000 reimbursement for extraordinary training. Because of their growth, they needed supervisors to be trained. We provided a program and then provided for $14,000 for worker training grant, recruitment services, pre-employment, et cetera. They hired 23 people out of the folks that we sent to them from Suncoast Workforce. So, and again, through the efforts, combined efforts, and initially started the EDC and the Sarasota Suncoast Workforce involvement, the company not only stayed with their 150 employees, but they increased the number of staff. And Sharon may allude to this, but they were in the old High-Stat building that was sitting vacant for several years and was kind of an eyesore because it was empty. And now Densplay is there with their beautiful sign. And this year, 2012, their commitment is to hire 48 new employees. I'm going to talk a little about Pierce Manufacturing, but I think in terms of looking at my watch, my time's about done. But let me share one other thing. And from my perspective, why I feel like the Suncoast Workforce is effective today and more today than ever before. Mark Huey and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and I had a friend that lives up north, and he's a winter resident, come down, and I introduced him to Mark, and Mark asked him a little bit about his business, and the man says, you know, I owned an engineering firm. He said, my first year, we had $80,000 in revenue. And he said, I sold it a couple years ago and it had $250 million in revenue. And Mark says, wow, how'd you do that? And the man says, one simple reason, I had an excellent staff. He said, I firmly believe that you can have a mediocre staff and have an excellent product, and you wouldn't do that well. But if you have an excellent staff and have a mediocre product, you'll excel. But you know, we had an excellent product and an excellent staff, and that's why we're able to do what we're able to do. And I think that's the same thing in the Suncoast Workforce, that Mary Helen has fulfilled the mission statement. She has been able to recruit, train, and retain excellent staff for the Suncoast Workforce. I feel like we've never had a better team. We have people who excel from private industry, from public industry, from education, et cetera. I feel like that other organizations and businesses are not embarrassed to call the Suncoast Workforce to become involved because they know that the quality of service that they receive will be excellent. They won't overpromise, but they'll do the things that they say they'll do, and they'll do it with class and style. The Business Services Division is called. They're fast and flexible. Was recognized by other regions throughout Florida. They were asked to present their local best practices to all the regions at a meeting in Pensacola in August. The survey taken among clients out there, employers, 70% gave the Suncoast Workforce high marks. We have ways to improve, but I feel like we're together. We have a great organization, great team of staff. We'll continue to make an impact in our local economy in a very positive way. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dale. We'll now take about 10 minutes for questions and answers He'll do the answering, you'll do the questioning.
Okay, as I take questions, I'm glad we have a couple of great staff here to help me answer them. So, Ted and Janice, be ready. All right, go ahead.
Morning, Dale. Thank
Morning.
you. I don't think you need a microphone here.
Actually, we do. Sorry.
For the record. Good morning. Thank you, Dale. My name is John Ryan, Venice Area Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Do the wages in the manufacturing, and when I say manufacturing, it also alludes to the electricians, things that you referred to, do their wages match the cost of living in our communities? And if they do, is there a perception problem with that, and also career paths for those folks?
Yeah, I'm going to answer, first of all, anecdotally, and then I think maybe Ted can give more specifics. But yeah, you know, manufacturing really is very high pay, high wages for skilled employees, and it's well above the national average. People can live in Sarasota, Manatee County, and if they're in the skilled positions, do very well. I recruit engineers all the time. I mean, typically, it's 65 to 85,000 plus for engineers. Ted, is there anything you'd like to add for that?
Well,
Sorry.
we have to wait for the microphone
Yeah.
here for the recording.
Sorry.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that part of what's going on here is sort of a brand gap. There's a branding issue related to the career of manufacturing and the perception issue. There is no question that the wages and the salaries are above average. I mean, manufacturing careers and jobs are primary as far as attracting talent, and they're certainly competitive and allow one to live within the area. I don't know that folks understand that, though, out there, students and those who are looking to choose a career.
I think because of supply and demand, employers are forced to pay good wages, or they're not going to get their employees.
I'm going to take her because she was next.
Hi, my name is Linda Holland. In the city of Sarasota, we have a homeless population and issue who say that they can't find jobs, and they also say that many of them have a lot of good experience that they, you know, that excuse me, have moved from other places and have education and training and that sort of thing. Do you work with like the Salvation Army or any of the agencies relative to helping resolve those issues?
A partnership with Goodwill, and I mean, obviously, anybody would be welcome to come into any of our one-stops, and we'd do all we can to help them. There possibly may be other issues that they're dealing with, like transportation, possibly felony records for some, not all, but that's always that's a barrier when that takes place. But if outside of that, sure.
You know, I attended an event for Goodwill about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and they actually are ramping up a program for veterans, and we know that a good number of our homeless are veterans, and so in fact, I was thinking that that would be a good connection for Suncoast Workforce and Goodwill, because this is a new initiative that they are beginning soon, I guess in 2013, so it would be a nice connection for you guys.
Good morning. I'm Jeanette Gates with the City of Venice. I think what I have to say is more of a request than a question. When we talk about the skills gap, could we look at it as though it's something more than a consolation prize? That there are very bright students that are not interested in going to a four-year college at this point. And if we look at it more positively, that they're going to go off and make a good living, and as parents we know that our children are going to make a good living for themselves, and as a second prize, we get to retain them in our community instead of educating them and then them leaving and going to the north or wherever they're going. I think it's very important to play this differently, that it's not a consolation prize, that they're very bright children that are entering this workforce.
Good point, and I think we have a real communications problem. I think there's understanding problem, maybe even as much among parents as there is in kids. I mean, these are great opportunities. It's not second prize, I think, for a lot of kids. I mean, even if they have incredible aptitude, I mean, what we see so often is that they'll go into this and they'll end up in the four-year degree program if they have that drive and aptitude. But even if they don't, it's a great career. You're exactly right. And I think that's frankly, I think that's our biggest challenge. And it's across the nation, but we need to address that. Good point.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. I'm Mayor Yates from the City of Northport. I do have a couple of questions, so I'll try and combine them into one. One is just with the lines kind of becoming blurred with regard to governmental entities versus private entities. Could you just kind of explain whether or not the Suncoast Workforce is actually a governmental entity, or is it a nonprofit private entity? Secondly to that, historically, the state of Florida has been challenged with regard to manufacturing jobs, typically because of the geography of Florida being, 300 and some plus miles south into the waters. So that's made a challenge transportation costs for many manufacturers. We can't change our geography. So what is the state of Florida actually doing to encourage manufacturing to tackle transportation-related issues? Are we going to have some better mobility here in the state of Florida to make it more cost conducive for manufacturers to actually come to Florida? And then thirdly would be the Department of Labor's statistics that actually has anticipated manufacturing in the state of Florida to be on the downside as far as job growth, whereas seeing for the state of Florida, for us, it would be more of the professional consulting, skills related, and those types of things. So I just wanted to combine that because I didn't want to take three different opportunities. Thank you.
Yeah. You're probably asking me three questions I'm not capable of answering. The third one is it has to do in terms of the decline in manufacturing and basically why would manufacturers want to relocate here or locate here? Is that part of it? It might?
It was actually based on the Department of Labor's projections through 2020.
Okay, that they see us in a continual decline? Yeah.
I'd be glad to.
Yeah, Mark, please. Yeah, you're probably the guy.
Is this working? You hear me okay? Kind of what I thought I'd do is talk about the manufacturing in general as in the recruitment context. And the first point I'll make is that the state of Florida hasn't hung its hat on being the center of, manufacturing development. But it is an industry that we are actively recruiting, and every community likes to have manufacturing come into it for some of the reasons that have been shared, and because it's a significant capital investment that occurs, and that they don't tend to move once they come, like other kinds of entities. So even though you're right, Florida, because of its geography, can't compete with other parts of our country that have better logistics for certain. The fact of the matter is we have some great manufacturers here. And you're well aware of them, from Sun Hydraulics to PGT to Tervis and others. And so a lot of our work in why we're sensitive to this issue and providing a good talent supply for manufacturing is to make sure we're supporting our existing manufacturers, because we don't want them to make decisions to grow elsewhere. So a lot of what we do in economic development is really to try to work with the base of industries that we have here and really to try to help meet them where their needs are. And in this case, we were hearing from manufacturers that we're falling short. And again, this is a national issue. The struggles that we're feeling are not unique to Manatee or to Sarasota, but they are ones that any community who wants to help its existing manufacturers grow and every once in a while have the opportunity to compete for a manufacturing investment coming into its community, it has got to be able to tell a story about how it is working with its manufacturers to meet skill gap needs or other needs that they might have in a cooperative way. And so I think that's how I'd respond to part of your question. I think you mentioned how are we working to improve logistical access, and I think that is important. You might want to share about, I think probably regionally the most important thing we can do here is that interstate connection for Port Manatee. So, and I came from the Tampa area, and we were very fortunate through the stimulus program to get the connector to the port to the interstate. Same thing needs to happen here, and it will be very, very pivotal for our port's future. So I think there's things like that that are going on around the state, and I know our organizations are supportive of those kinds of initiatives.
Well, thank you very much, and we will now move to our second presenter, Sharon Hillstrom, President, Manatee County EDC.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks for inviting me to participate on this panel, MJ and Angela. Today, I'm going to talk about Manatee County's emerging global presence. I know some of you must be thinking, what is she talking about? Well, I've got info to back up my statement. Manatee County's global presence largely has been under the radar at the local, regional, and state levels. Up until the last few years, we were focused more inwardly, not recognizing or capitalizing on the many assets we had to support and create a global presence. All that changed when the recession hit, and we, like communities across the country, were faced with the challenge of reinventing ourselves in order to diversify the economy, create jobs, and new wealth for our communities. I'm happy to say we are moving in the right direction, and Manatee County's global presence is taking shape. So here's how. First, we need to take a look at who we are and capitalize on the global companies that already are in Manatee County. For example, see if you know who this is. Half a century ago, Italian immigrant Anthony Rossi established a small fruit packing business in Florida. The company he founded has grown to become the world's only global citrus juice business. You know who it is? Yay, good for you. Tropicana Products is the leading producer of chilled orange juice in the world and distributes its products in 23 different countries. So here they've been here for over 50 years, and we weren't saying we got them. So we are now. So in the last few years, we've seen an uptick in international companies, both U.S. and foreign-owned, across a variety of sectors wanting to do business in the Bradenton area. Let's talk about those. Feld Entertainment. Any of you familiar with Feld? Okay. That was a great win for our area. They're a leading producer of live entertainment in 70 countries on 6 different continents. Think of Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, Feld Motorsports, Disney Live, and Disney on Ice. They are moving their corporate headquarters from Vienna, Virginia to Manatee County. They purchased the old GE building, which was vacant for about 18 months. It's about 400,000 square foot facility, and I was just there a couple weeks ago. In fact, my colleague Lauren Kratch and I were there a couple weeks ago, and what they are doing to that facility is phenomenal. When they move in there, it's going to be a huge impact on that area of our community, so we're very excited about that. Air Products and Chemical. That's a recent win for us. That was a competitive project, another manufacturer, talking manufacturers. Actually, most of our projects that we've competed for and won have been in manufacturing. Just so you know, we have over 600 manufacturers in this bi-county region. A lot of people don't know that. Anyway, Air Products and Chemical. They are headquartered in Allentown, Pennsylvania. They've been in business for 72 years. They've got annual revenues of over $10 billion. 20,000 employees in 50 countries, and they have 600 production facilities. So they're building a new manufacturing facility in Palmetto, right across the street from Port Manatee. They make heat exchangers that liquefy natural gas. I don't know if any of you know what heat exchangers are, but I'm learning this as we go along. I learn a little bit more about it every day. In fact, I was on the internet last night going, I better explain this correctly. But these are these long tubes. They look like rocket ships. They're like half a football field long, 16.5 feet wide in diameter, and they weigh about 500 tons. And so we located them across the street from Port Manatee. And they make 2 of these a year, and they ship them all over the world. And Port Manatee, quite frankly, wasn't even on their radar. And I don't even remember, Lauren, do you remember how that we were working with a site consultant, and he was aware of our port, it wasn't on their radar, and he said, let's just go take a look at Port Manatee. So they came down and we did the big presentation. We had everybody, because we're all about a team approach in Manatee County in terms of how we deal with economic development. And they were pleasantly surprised with what they saw at our port. And 2 reasons we won that project. One is the property was directly across the street from the port. They didn't have to make any turns, as you can imagine, to navigate in something that's half a football field long across the street. You want to be able to go straight across to your port. And so this property was situated right across the street. They had a straight shot, and then they also wanted space near the berths that they could finish doing the final touches of manufacturing, which we had at Port Manatee. The other piece of this whole project was workforce. They needed welders. And so we partnered with Manatee Technical Institute, brought this project to Manatee Technical Institute. Manatee Technical Institute basically knocked their socks off and said, we will provide the training for those workers so that you will have skilled workers for your facility. And we won that project. That was one of our first competitive projects, actually, and that was a great win for us. Projected to create over 250 jobs in the next few years at a wage that's much higher than our average wage in Manatee County. So that was a great win for us. Iris is a company that was based in the United Kingdom, and they moved their the U.S. operations to Lakewood Ranch. And they make infrared windows that they're used for inspecting industrial electrical equipment. And that was another great win for us. They're thrilled to be in Manatee County, again, another global company. ISPG is another company. They were in Connecticut. They make large cannulas for the medical device industry. They're a global corporation. And again, they are locating in Lakewood Ranch. It Works Global. They are a direct sales company that markets beauty, wellness, and weight loss products. They have over 18,000 independent direct selling distributors in the U.S., Canada, the EU, and Australia. And then Dentsply, of course, that you mentioned, that's a global company. They make orthodontic products. Any of you have kids that have those Invisaligns? They make them at that facility, and that was a great win for us. They were doing a consolidation, and they had a facility in Georgia, and their headquarters actually are in Pennsylvania. They had space in Pennsylvania where this expansion could have occurred. We competed hard to win that project. The state was involved as well, and fortunately we were able to locate them here and rehab that high-stat building. Again, beautiful refurbishing of that building. I mean, we're thrilled to have them. So those are some of our global companies that we have in Manatee County. How many of you even knew that we had all those here? Pretty good, huh? Yeah. Okay, so that's one part of our emerging global presence as a community. Now let's talk about sports. We are confident in saying that our community, and I would have to say this is a bi-county thing really, but our community is becoming a world-renowned sports destination, and we're poised to be a premier magnet for sports tourism. 44,000 sports-related visitors stayed in accommodations last year in our community, and nearly 9% of the total tourist count. And their total economic impact was $60 million. So what are some of our sports entities that have a global presence? The first one that comes to mind is IMG Academy. They have students from 80 different countries, and they have 12,000 students that go through their facility every year. They host tournaments all year long, and it's just a great asset for us to have in terms of the sports piece. Premier Sports Complex is located in Lakewood Ranch. They are now really emerging as quite a powerhouse in that part of our county. They host national and international sporting events. In the past 18 months, these events brought over 100,000 athletes and spectators to the community, and the economic impact for that, $65 million just last year. And it just keeps growing more and more and more. And then, in terms of a bi-county asset that we have in the sports industry, is the Florida World Aquatics Center. I always have to remember the whole, because it used to just be called the rowing facility, but now it's the Florida World Aquatics Center. And that is going to be a tremendous asset for both of our communities. It's pretty much right on the county line, I would say. And that was one of those things that just kind of grew, and it's becoming a huge attraction for our area. They're looking to host the World Championships for rowing in 2017, which could bring 50,000 people from over 80 countries for several weeks. So another piece of the global presence for our area. Another thing we need to think about when we're talking about global presence is international trade. And how do you get a global presence with international trade? Well, one, you have to increase your exports. You have to increase in-market awareness, and then once those two things happen, you're going to improve your reputation as a global player. And we have a local success story. We are trying to encourage more of our companies to delve into exporting because it's a great way for them to diversify their businesses. So I'd like to talk about one of our local companies called Han Powerboats. They were facing some really challenging times, and we connected them, our organization connected them with the U.S. Commercial Service. And they were able to secure a contract with Nigeria to build boats. And they had a sale of $400,000 for powerboats for Nigeria. Now, that company had 6 employees, and they were going to have to probably lay off half of those had they not secured this contract. And instead, they will be doubling their staff in the next year because they're going to continue this international business. And they were recognized by the U.S. Commercial Service, I think the only company in Florida to get an award for exporting. So that was a great win as well. Something else that we both share is the Sarasota-Bradenton International Airport. When season starts, they have some flights going back and forth to Canada, a great asset for us. Port Manatee, I wasn't going to talk about it because I knew Senator Galvano was going to speak about it, but before he gets here, I'll just say a couple things. It's always a great asset for us to talk about. If you haven't been to Port Manatee, they give tours. You ought to go take a look. It is quite an impressive facility. It's unique in terms of ports. It's in a rural location, so getting in and out of that port is really easy. Most ports are in urban locations, as you can imagine, so Port Manatee provides quick access in and out of the port. It's just minutes from the port to get to I-75 and 275, so that's very appealing. They have about probably over 5,000 acres of land around the port that's in an encouragement zone that is eligible for great incentives. We have a new port director. His name is Carlos Buqueras. He speaks 5 different languages. He came from Port Everglades. We expect him to make some great strides for the port. And the other thing that's great about Port Manatee is it's the closest port to the Panama Canal in the United States. And so with the expansion of the canal, we expect that we will realize some significant economic impact from that. Now, I've talked about this global presence, and some of you may have attended an event that we had last week where we launched our new brand for our community and our new logo. And so I've shared all this information with you about our emerging presence as a global entity, and now I'm going to ask Jay if he would go ahead and play a YouTube of our new brand and logo. To the big screen. There you go. Great. So that's it. That's our new brand and our new logo. We're very excited about it. I got 1 minute. And we've had some great response from the community, so we expect all this good news that we've had to continue, and now I guess I will go ahead and take some questions if you have any.
Well, thank you, Sharon, and we'll now have 10 minutes of Q&A for Sharon. So please, your questions.
If there's a large company looking at moving here from another state, are they better off to meet with someone at the state level first or someone at the local level?
It can happen either way. Typically, it depends on where your lead comes from. Sometimes they go right through the state. In our state economic development organization is called Enterprise Florida. If it goes to them, they connect with us. We work together, and that's why we're successful. So if they come to us first and it would qualify for state incentives, we bring the state in right away. So it doesn't necessarily matter either way, because if there's an opportunity to connect either way, we do.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question in terms of global competition for manufacturing and all. What advantages are labor setting here in Florida relative to places like Pennsylvania and other states? Is that an economic advantage to you in terms of recruiting manufacturing in the area?
The advantages for bringing manufacturing to Florida, one of the things that's very appealing, particularly from those union states, is the fact that we're a right-to-work state. That's a big one. No personal income tax is quite appealing. Florida actually has a reputation of having great training institutions, so that's of importance, as I mentioned, with Air Products. So. You know, we do have a strong case. You know, one of the challenges, quite frankly, for us as a state, and the state is addressing this now, is we need a business brand. And the state actually is doing what we just got done doing as an organization. They're creating a business brand for the state to say, you know, this is a great business destination. I know that at the state level, too, they are working on lightening up on some of the regulations that might be oppressive, because that can be a deterrent to companies coming here as well. We have done recruitment in Canada. We've been there 4 times, and the last time we were there, we have some companies that are very interested for all the reasons that I just said.
Question regarding the qualified workforce. I know there's a lot of talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Many schools are doing away with vocational programs. However, as the speaker mentioned before, I think that you needed qualified welders, and you had to partner with a vocational institution to ramp up prospective students to meet that demand. Do you see a resurgence of vocational training institutions here in order to satisfy the changing trend? 4-year degrees are becoming less sustainable for many kids coming out of college, but there are needs for vocational training.
I would say that we are very fortunate in this bi-county region. We have the Manatee Technical Institute, and then we have the Sarasota Technical Institute as well. And they are responding in a very proactive way to address the needs of the employers that are coming here. Every time we've ever gone to MTI, they have been spot on in terms of, yes, we can provide the training. MTI has a new facility that will be opening up in February. It is state-of-the-art. I toured it not too long ago, and I thought, wow, I mean, you would be proud to go to this technical institute. And I think they're getting away from, they're not saying vocational so much, it's more technical, because quite frankly, manufacturing jobs are quite technical. They're quite high skill. They're quite computer oriented. So it is very technical. So I think just in terms of the perception of a vocational versus technical is going away.
I can just add quickly, CTI here in Sarasota County, and in response to the manufacturing skills gap study that Dale shared about earlier. They, as you might know, are going through a new expansion of their campus. And as part of that campus, because of the skills gap study, they are reinvigorating their connection with the manufacturing industry with skills training there. And they hadn't planned to dedicate a space to that, but now are. State College of Florida is also part of the team. They offer certification programs for those who are in the manufacturing industry that are important to their career ladder. So I think, again, going back to this being good at customer service with our manufacturers, I think we're finding that the educational institutions, the workforce system is trying to be increasingly customer service oriented to ensure a good talent stream.
No, I think one thing that I did want to mention too is that in order for us to be successful in economic development, and I think the reason we have been so successful is we've got a great system in place. We have all our economic development partners that we work with, so that when we meet with any company, we've got a team put together, and they're confident that we can deliver what we say we're going to deliver. And even, you know, in a bi-county way too, if there's projects that we can work on together. Either way, we want to present a united front, a team approach, because that's extremely appealing to companies.
The last question, as a parent, you know, one wants, of course, their kids to have the greatest opportunity. Are these tracks being set systematically at the educational level, or even at the high school level, where one can begin to track youth who may have a certain aptitude for technical training? Or is...
Can you restate that? I'm not sure I'm understanding.
You mentioned the college level, but even at the high school level, is there a track in place that you have in mind to start gearing high school students to meet the demand that you had foreseen in their future?
Do you want to?
Yeah, I'll share on that at a couple levels. One, there is an effort to do that now in the school system in a variety of ways. For example, they partner with the SAMA organization, the manufacturers organization, to do tours, take high school students out to manufacturing facilities to expose them. And I think what you're going to see is that get even more sophisticated to include parents and teachers more and more in that process of learning more about the opportunities for manufacturing careers. Secondly, I think you see happening around the country, and I think you're going to see it happening here more, this very good system that we have here that Sharon was talking about, give it even more sophisticated in that way. And if you look at some communities, I believe like a Cincinnati, Kansas City, Miami's starting to put in place, Jacksonville is, I think you're going to see it take hold here, of even more collaboration, more intensive tracking of students, and just, again, a more career-oriented focus around the targeted industries that are in communities and the industries that they're trying to attract. And I think that's kind of a cutting-edge area of growth in economic development planning that's taken hold around the country, as every community is trying to figure out how to make sure they have the workforce of the future that meets the demands of all kinds of industries, not just manufacturers, but all kinds of industries that might come to their community. So.
How do you utilize the University of South Florida both for education and for the research and R&D efforts that can come out of the university, and apply to both of you, I suppose?
What we've done with USF Sarasota Manatee is connect them with the Suncoast workforce for internships. That's been, I think that's a key thing for us to do, because I don't know that that connection was necessarily there before. So that's, you know, just again bridging those gaps and making our system more cohesive and efficient. In terms of the research and development, I don't know that I can respond to that.
We've done some SBIR and with the university, and we're still trying to get better at that. Again, our early efforts, we've had good participation, really trying to connect local companies with some of the research going on there, but not yet where we've had a grant sort of go forward or a launch. We have been, again, and I'll get up and talk a little bit later, and I'll maybe come back to that issue when I talk. But I think we're really fortunate to have this campus of USF here, and it's an economic engine, but we also are trying to figure out more and more how to take advantage of the main campus's increasing regional presence, being on the edge of the region.
Okay, thank you, and we will let Mark, you can continue.
Oh, okay. I'm going to change it up a little bit. Where's the pointer? Yeah, I need the clicker.
Or a pointer?
I was asked to speak on a little bit different subject. All right. She's going to set it up for you. Okay. And everybody hear me okay? Do I need the mic? Yes. I need the mic? Okay. So it's, are we up and running? Okay. There we go. I'm just having trouble moving the mouse around. Can you maybe help Kyle real quick just to get it going? I don't know why. Bear with us. Again, what I was talking about today, a little bit different tact, talking about some of the longer range initiatives. Real quickly, our organization, just to familiarize you, those that aren't, we work at the intersection of the public and the private sector. We are a 501c6 organization. We've been in our current legal structure since 2004. We are really pleased to have a big tent. All of our municipalities are represented on our board, as well as 220 various businesses support our operations. I'm excited to have here one of our board members, Jeanette Gates. Hello, Jeanette. Good to have you here. We have the mayor of Northport, one of the new commissioners of Northport here. They're part of our team. We have Jeff Maltzby from the county here, who is our liaison with the county. Ruth Buchanan is here from Northport, part of our team. We have Leroy Sullivan back here, one of our private with People's Gas, part of our team, and it's always good to be with our workforce team. It's great to be here at USF, who's also part of the team. About a $1.4 million budget comes from private and public sources. Again, like a lot of economic development organizations, we're working with our existing businesses. We're working with startup activity. I'm not talking about this today. I'm not going to talk about our business recruitment efforts. We work with a lot of efforts to improve our product, improve our business climate. Not going to talk about that. What I'm going to talk about is sort of the long-range planning things. That's what I was asked to speak about. What are some of the things that we're doing in our community that are unique? And when you talk about long-range planning, our community is in the fourth of 4 5-year strategic plans. So we've had a discipline of doing a strategic plan every 5 years. And what I'm going to share with you today is sort of we worked. This is we're into the end of the 4th year of the plan. So what I'm going to share with you is not all of the things in the plan. We don't have time to do that. But 3 of those that have gotten private engagement, significant private engagement, and are showing some early signs of being potential economic drivers in our community long term. First one has to do with aging. And the opportunity, won't spend a lot of time with this. Everybody knows the direction of demographics nationally, globally, and that those folks have a lot of money, a lot of disposable income. And here you can see how the 2050 looks for the U.S. population, 20% over 65. Look at Florida, 26% over 65. Sarasota right now, 31%. Now I've got a commercial announcement to do here real quick, because this is what Sharon throws up there when she's recruiting against me, you know, with a company. She's like, you know, surely you're not going to move your company to a community with all these old people, but, you know, hey, we have plenty of young people in Sarasota County, and lots of young talent. We just had the Tough Mudders here. Y'all hear about that? Yeah. 12,000 strong. Crazy, crazy stuff. That was my commercial. Globally, all the developing countries on that same path, you know about that. So our opportunity, you know, could we create a place because of our unique demographics that allow us to test products, services, policies in, and this is the unique thing that we have, a community setting. If you Google aging and aging research or aging institutes, you'll pull up 1,000 things. What Sarasota has this unique community setting, and is that of value in the marketplace today? And could we parlay that capability into long-term investment and job growth in our community? Did a lot of research on that and got an early read of yes. And so this idea of an Institute for the Ages was developed, basically to provide a place in our community where government, business, researchers, aging services providers can come together and really, in a community setting, a place you can test some things in a lab, but there's a lot of things you can only test in the real world. And so can Sarasota County be that place? Where are we with it? $4 million was raised to initiate the Institute. Most of that came from Sarasota County, or a large part of it, not most of it, a large part of it, as well as local foundations, national foundations, and local philanthropy. We've hired a CEO. How many of you have met Tom yet? He's getting around, trying to meet people. He's been on the job 4 or 5 months now, I think, and a great guy. I think you're going to enjoy meeting him. He comes from the private sector, and in particular in that space of innovation. And really at the heart of it, that's what we see the Institute being all about innovation. And Tom brings a great track record in that. And guess what? We have projects underway. Early on, we have a variety of projects. Don't have time to go into all of them. I'll just note at the top, though, one involves a Silicon Valley startup company who thinks that what they're working on can only be tested in this kind of an environment. So some initial traction. And their board is being transformed into a national board with some great representation. Another area we worked on, medical tourism. Most of you are probably aware of the opportunities. 400,000 inbound medical tourists a year, $5 billion market, and projected to grow hugely. We have here a variety of great assets to work from that we observed. We are thrilled, you know, Sarasota Memorial Hospital is a part of it, but we have specialists who are attracted here because of the high discretionary wealth that's here that attracts world-class specialists in a lot of different fields. We have places like Sarasota Bay Club, which offer Ritz-Carlton style healthcare rehabilitation capabilities. And of course, you know about our wonderful quality of life all over the community, from Northport to Venice to Siesta Key and St. Armands. So can we leverage all of that? Our outstanding healthcare quality of services, our outstanding destination to attract, to really become a leading destination for inbound medical procedures. So what's going on? Visit Sarasota, our tourism organization, worked with medical industry, our organization, and we've stood up an initial group of doctors that we are marketing, and so this is the website you can go to and check out. Welcome to Sarasota Medical Tourism. Here you go. Come have your surgery in paradise. If any of you aren't feeling well, you're in a great place. We've got a hotel and a doctor for you. And one of the exciting things is that an entity, a private entity, has been formed called Florida Medical Retreat. And they are out aggressively marketing, particularly in Canada. This year, they actually hope to have a partnership with a Canadian medical director and a marketing organization. And so already we have been getting bookings, and it's only very early on. All of these initiatives are in their early stages, but business is being booked. Lastly, area of design. Opportunity, again, you guys know all about this. The role of design thinking in our economic landscape has changed dramatically in the last decade. And when IBM talks to businesses and says what are the top leadership qualities they're looking forward for in their top leaders, creativity is at the top. You look at what it means to the bottom line of companies. This was a study that Ringling commissioned, and you get this. We have, of course, the Ringling College, and most of you know about it. The only thing you really need to know is you go walk into their recruiting office and look at the logos on the wall. And it's the who's who of entertainment, of digital media, are recruiting out of Ringling College. It's a tremendous asset that we have. We have a critical mass of design firms. Our location quotient, for those of you who are technical economic development, is strong in that. And we have a very stubborn group, hub, private entrepreneur incubator, and they have been working in this space of technology, web-based creativity, really that space of art, technology, business coming together for a while. They are opening in their new home this Saturday, a little commercial from them. So that's what we've got going on, and this is our opportunity. Can we use our assets at Ringling College, thinking, design talent, in a way that drives a competitive advantages in our local business for growth? What's the progress been? We've had a group come around Ringling College to create an innovation and creativity center. And the local foundation and these businesses are helping Ringling College prototype this center. And essentially, it's about bringing that kind of thinking into the private marketplace. Don't have a lot of time to go into it, but again, a lot of engagement with it, and we're pleased with the progress that's occurring. And then, quick story. We have a company right at the heart of this intersection of art, design and technology and business that has been growing over the last few years in our community. And the great story about them is they just hired 10 Ringling grads. So they were the largest hirer of graduates of Ringling College. So this brain drain, we now have a company that's harnessing that. We're very excited about continuing to support its growth. So those are the few initiatives. Again, not all of the things we're working on, but ones I wanted to tell you about kind of long term that have an opportunity to really change the diversification of our economy. And so I hope you get a sense that we're pushing hard to diversify through some unique competitive strengths that we've, the public-private partnership, you get a feel for how a lot of partners are coming together to make these sorts of initiatives happen. And, it's early, but we've laid a good foundation. And so I appreciate the time to come and share about those with you, and be happy to answer any questions about that or other things.
Hey, Mark, and others on the panel. I'm with USF, and we're kind of the emerging university in this community, as you heard earlier from Bob, and thank you, Bob, for that couple minutes infomercial on USF. We're growing a new college, a college of hospitality and technology. We combine those two things on purpose. When we were talking earlier about manufacturing, the high-end manufacturing needs a great deal of technology. And Mark, I'm glad you mentioned the tourism. If we don't have folks to serve the industry for service in this community, we won't prosper in the future. So we're trying to grow up that population through here. So a four-year institution is very important to our community. And so tell us how that manufacturing firm that you're talking about, or firms that you're talking about, can really access us, because we've been an upper class university for a lot of years. So we get the older adults coming here for their education. And I think that could be a sell in both economic engines for both of you up there when you're talking with these folks about how their upper management need to go back and get their MBAs and things like that at the hometown universities. So talk a little bit about how we can further partner with both of the economic engines here.
Well, you're a lot there in your question, and one thing is, you're one question. One thing was, we're selling USF, and it is part of the pitch for our region, and a very important part of it. So we're, again, just proud to have the campus here, and we sell the main campus too. So the whole USF institution is a big part of our economic equation. Your example that you shared about the new program, the combining of technology and hospitality management training, is, I think, another example of what we've shared up here a couple of times in a couple of ways about the responsiveness of our educational and workforce systems to the needs that are out there. And I think that's a testament to Bob and others in the university who are, we can do things, but you do things as well to connect yourself to the business community and to feel the needs that are out there and to be responsive. And so we want to continue to be a part of that.
And I will say that, is that on? Whenever we're on recruitment missions, USF Sarasota Manatee is always part of our presentation. It's an absolute fantastic asset for us to talk about. And what Mark was saying, it's funny because when you live in an area, you think everybody knows about you. And when you're going to a place like Canada, for instance, you have to start with, okay, are you interested in the southeastern United States? And then you say, how about Florida? And then you say, have you heard of Tampa? Okay, we're just south of Tampa. But that's how it goes. I mean, and you get so caught up in, well, we're so great, everybody should know about us, but they really don't. And that's part of what we do when we're recruiting companies to come here. But we absolutely talk about our higher education institutions because it's a critical part of the recruitment process.
Thank you, Mr. Yui. Over here. First, I do want to say that I do know personally of people that have come here to have a surgery because of the fact that they're going to be laid up for 3 to 4 weeks. So it is a phenomenal opportunity to focus on that because it is a great economic development engine. And with regard to my question before about the manufacturing aspects, I think from the Manatee economic development focus with the global, that's kind of what I was hoping to hear in the Sarasota County Economic Development Initiatives, is that we are focusing on the fact that manufacturing for export is going to be our greatest in the state of Florida opportunity for those manufacturing jobs. And so I would hope that our resources are going to be really delving into that. I do want to ask, though, is there anything on the state or federal level that we as municipalities, elected officials, can do to ease some of those gridlocks and restraints with regard to NAFTA or some of the exporting limitations or a higher cost for exporting that can help our domestic companies here? So if you could, and also I just want to put in kudos for Warm Mineral Springs. That was not on the map, but it is a public asset that is going to be the health and wellness driver and engine in this community. And you know, for natural environment, great outdoors, we are the mecca for that.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of private interest, hasn't there, in helping to make that happen in Warm Mineral Springs. Yeah.
Well, I'm just proud to say that myself and Lauren Cratch have visited Northport, and we did see Warm Mineral Springs, and you're very fortunate to have that asset there. We visited with Ruth and Al, I guess it was about a year ago, so, because we were excited to see what was going on in Northport. I think one of the important things to consider, too, just on the federal level, is that we have the free trade agreements with Colombia and Panama. Who else? Colombia and Panama, for sure. And in fact, before Mark was here, we went on a bi-county trade mission to Panama. Maltzby was there. Sorry, I always call him Maltzby. But we had a delegation go down to Panama and learn about the opportunities that exist there, and that was a great opportunity for us. You know, Florida has 15 seaports, and one of the initiatives of Governor Scott is to make us the exporting capital of the United States. For heaven's sakes, we should be. So I'm expecting some good things in that regard.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at some of the growth in manufacturing that's occurred in our region, Sun Hydraulics comes to mind, ASO comes to mind in particular. It's driven by international growth primarily. And so we coordinate through a variety of resources through the Department of Commerce and Enterprise Florida to connect our manufacturers to resources that can help them grow internationally. And that's a regular part of our job duties.
Hi, I'm Jim Bennett, and I'm the Venice representative to the Sarasota Manatee MPO. That's one of the things I do. So I have seen how the counties at the governmental level can focus on working together on transportation issues. And my question to the business and mixed partnership community is, what are you folks doing to take advantage of the wonderful fact that Florida is one state? So we don't have, like, the New York metropolitan area to futz around with 3 different jurisdictions for regional development. What are we doing here to enhance regional development as we compete with each other?
Okay, well, I mean, one thing is we're all part of the Tampa Bay Partnership. So we work collaboratively with the Tampa Bay Partnership. Both Sharon and I are part of that, and that is a major effort to sort of work collaboratively with, from a regional perspective. We also work south as well. So we are constantly looking for ways to partner with Charlotte and even further south. I'm working on an initiative at the early stages in the area of entrepreneurial support, for example, where we might collaborate together. So we're always through that and other. Then on a statewide basis, we're all part of Enterprise Florida. And Sharon mentioned a little while ago the effort of Enterprise Florida to work with all of its local partners to do a better job getting the business brand of Florida out there. Because, again, we compete with the tourism brand, the retirement brand. That's where all of the investment has gone in promoting Florida. And increasingly, we all feel like we'd like to see at least 10% of that kind of investment being made in promoting the business brand of Florida. So that's a little bit of a response. Again, Sharon has shared, we're always looking for things to do together. together, and our boards as well are looking for things to do together as an organization, and we have a history of having done some of that. Sharon mentioned the Panama trip that we did together. We did, last year, we did a joint session that Florida Power and Light sponsored to educate our municipal leaders about current economic development trends. What are some of the other things we did together recently?
Biotech Bi-County Roundtable Committee that
Biotech
got together.
Roundtable.
Well, the other thing too is that we share assets. You know, Lakewood Ranch is in both Sarasota and Manatee County, so that's a great asset for both of us. The airport, you know, that's an asset for both of us. And, you know, I will say that when we are on recruitment missions, I talk about Ringling College. We talk at a grand scale because they don't look at counties. They don't look at boundaries. They look at what is going to be the best place for my business to locate. So we want to provide the best, most compelling business case for a company to stay here, expand here, and to locate here as well.
I think another thing we do well together that's really important is how we work with existing industries growing in our respective communities. Because oftentimes they will try to pit us against one another. And that long-term doesn't contribute to the kind of working relationship, Jim, that you're a part of at the MPO and that our elected officials, I think, also want to be a part of when we pit one another. And so we have a very good working relationship about how we work or don't work with companies in our respective communities who approach us about growing in our community. So.
Please.
Yes. My name is Ed Smith, Polk County Commissioner. Thank you. My wife keeps asking me, why don't I retire? And I said, I've retired twice, and I love retiring. I'm a retired Navy officer first, and then I also spent 17 years in the Polk County education system. You know, one of the things, and I'm just thrilled to hear the talk today about cooperation. I think that's great. One of the things that Senator J.D. Alexander always told me, I guess, every time I spoke with him is, in his words, that a rising tide floats all boats. And instead of competing, we need to work together. And if somebody else gets a big company and it's doing well, we should, you know, cheer them. Say, boy, you guys are doing a great job. Keep it up. Rather than saying, well, I wish they had come here instead, you know, that sort of thing. I want to ask a question, and I don't care who answers. I just make sure I'm on the right track. With talking to some of the companies that have moved to Polk County recently, they pointed out some things that I think kind of were universal among all of them. And if you agree with these, fine. If you don't, please let me know where we're off base. They said they're looking for, in no particular order, a favorable tax structure. They're looking for an available workforce and training for that. They're looking for a favorable climate, which we have all that. They're looking for access to logistics, rail, air, sea, highway. They're looking for the availability of a large supply of relatively cheap land. They're looking for a quality education system, and by that they mean K through PhD. If they're going to move their families down here and their children are going to come down, they want to know what kind of an education system you have available. And the other thing they're looking for, believe it or not, is leisure opportunities. And that's important to some companies when moving in a particular area. Because if the things I'm hearing about Gen Xers is my generation, we went where the job was. And that was important to us. They don't look at it that way. They want to go where they want to live, and then I'll look for a job when I get there. So it's a different mindset, and some of them, in trying to attract the kind and the quality of employees they want to be located in a place that's going to attract the kind of people that they want, because as I said, that changing mindset. I just want to kind of throw that out and see if any of those areas you think are not as important as others, and as I said, I didn't put them in any particular order.
The list you've gave is very consistent. I think some companies aren't as interested in logistics as others, but I think what we constantly hear and on all the projects we work on is labor force, number one. That business climate, you've got to have it. Again, especially as you're coming out of this difficult economy, and there are, face it, the bigger job growth opportunities, they can go anywhere. And if you're not open for business and don't have that sort of business-friendly environment, you're not going to compete. And then all the K through 12, the quality of life factors, yeah, those come up in all of the projects. So I think the things you've shared really resonate, and I think what we see universally is that workforce side. And when you look at studies being done of site selection consultants and corporate real estate decision makers, that's what they're saying. That's what they're broadcasting. Workforce, number one, that tax structure, business climate, all of that, number two, and then it sort of trickles down into other issues, but the K through 12, quality of life, and then things specific to them. If they need to be next to a port, they're not coming to Polk County, maybe, right? But they're a great candidate for Manatee.
Right. And I figured this would come up. And so in my research last night on one of my companies that I mentioned today called ISPG, it's a family-owned business. They moved here from Connecticut. And the guy that is the president and CEO of the company, his name is Jim Fitzgibbons, and he has a blog. And so I kind of perused his blog, and I want to share this with you. He said, "We began to leave Connecticut in August of 2010 to find an environment friendlier to business. Excessive regulations, high taxes, and an anti-employer administration of workmen's compensation and unemployment compensation placed burdens on our business and made future success problematic. The absence of a personal income tax and a growing atmosphere of business friendliness added to our decision to choose Florida and Lakewood Ranch. The opportunity to participate in good schools and cultural events are plentiful in the area. Of course, the beautiful weather and reduced cost of living on this peninsula was a plus." So there's firsthand from a company that moved here this year and reiterating pretty much what you're saying.
Mark, you mentioned the medical community, and particularly as it relates to Sarasota, given the implementation of the new health care law and what's going on in Tallahassee with the governor's office and legislature, how do you see that impacting what we're trying to do here locally?
Okay, a lot of dimensions to that question, aren't there? I talked about the medical tourism area, and a lot of that is driven by spending unrelated to healthcare insurance. So that's one of the good things, one of the reasons why that was a niche we wanted to go after. I think where there continues to be a lot of uncertainty around business cost. It doesn't there and how the healthcare law is going to impact business costs. And I think that is a factor out there that is driving investment decisions. And how Florida plays out in that, it will have its own unique impact on business economics, won't it? So I think that's all to be seen, but it is part of a business cost equation. And again, it continues to be part of the uncertainty that's I think still causing our economy to drag a little bit. So, wish I had a solution, but it's a piece of the puzzle out there.
Hey, Mark, I'm Andrew Herron, and I work with ING and other financial institutions in the state of Florida here. And you focus a lot on the aging population, 31% being over the age of 65. But nationwide, those over 55 have 75% of the wealth of the population. And as you seek to attract people here for medical tourism, I'm sure you're aware that one of the biggest eroding factors to one's wealth at that age is the cost of health care, more specifically long-term care.
Yes.
And there's an act that's still being worked out called the Deficit Reduction Act, where state and governments are partnering together with insurers to enlarge the risk pool to make it less costly for elderly to be in long-term care. Oftentimes to qualify for Medicaid or state-funded or federal-funded care, one has to pretty much and get rid of their other assets, so they have to spend down their assets to near poverty levels. And you mentioned some test policies that you're going to do in some communities. Have you considered a policy that addresses the long-term care issues to continue to attract higher net worth aging populations here, perhaps partnering with financial firms for long-term care type plans?
Whether or not that's come at the Institute yet, that particular issue, I'm not aware of it. But it certainly is an example of something that might come at the Institute. I can tell you one area they're working on now, I showed the Boston College study. It had to do with the aging of nursing populations in hospitals and how that's a common issue, and that's an example of an issue that they're getting funding for to study. And I kind of mentioned that because your point sort of speaks to some of the trends that are impacting healthcare in terms of cost pressures that are affecting hospitals and doctors. Dale mentioned earlier HMA. And the reason we had that opportunity and may have other opportunities to work with them is because they are part of a demand in the industry and a trend across the industry to lower cost that are part of the healthcare reform. And so what you're finding is hospitals combining, right? Medical practices combining, and that there's a drive to efficiency. Well, that's creating an opportunity. And it's an opportunity for shared services for those back office operations like this HMA project that we worked on, which was a billing function of their hospital. And so what you're going to see is the economic opportunity coming out of issues like you're sharing about that really are about how do we provide coverage for everyone affordably. It's going to take this drive for cost containment, and that's creating new ways for the medical industry to organize, which are creating opportunities for communities who can compete to provide the workforce for those.
Okay. Welcome, Senator. We're pleased to see you.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure I was in the right room.
Needs no introduction. Senator Bill Galvano, District 26.
Well, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for saving me a seat right at the end, right in the nick of time. I thought I'd touch on a couple things that are very germane for you all right now. One is how it's looking in Tallahassee from a budget standpoint. Second, the importance of the regionalism and working together as a legislature on regional issues. And then third, just touch on some of the funding initiatives, and in particular, the Enterprise Florida's initiative on the port. I spent this week in Tallahassee. It was our first official committee week. And as chair of a budget committee, I chair K-12 and university system funding in the Florida Senate. Obviously, we got very involved, obviously, in the budget and the projections and how things are looking. And I can tell you, as you probably have read, that against the drastic cuts that we've had in the past several years, our budget is looking optimistic. That if all things remain equal, we should have additional dollars, albeit not back to levels we were in the mid-first decade of this century, but better. That is only if we do not suffer a fiscal impact from some of the unknowns that are out there. Number one being the negotiations on the fiscal cliff. That's not a Washington issue. That's a Florida issue, that's a community issue, that's a Bradenton area issue, it's a Tampa Bay area issue. The impacts to our state would be drastic. Also, what occurs overseas is something that we have to watch as we go through the budget process in Tallahassee. Thirdly, we have a pending decision from the Supreme Court on the pension pay-in that was approved a few years back. And depending on how that comes out, if we are required as a state to make those payments back, it could have close to a $2 billion impact on our state budget. And I bring this up so that you know what we're facing, because fiscal impacts such as that, price tags of that magnitude mean game over for a lot of our initiatives, including initiatives that we hope to fund to bring about economic opportunity and stimulation. So that's where we are. But I remain optimistic, and we're going to work very hard as we go through the budget process to make sure we're being as efficient and as effective as we can. Another aspect of budgeting this year that will be different than years past is we're going to look at everything from not just non-recurring projects, but recurring projects as well. And so you'll see a lot of projects that maybe some of you feel very comfortable about on lists that are being reviewed. Doesn't mean we're getting rid of things necessarily. It just means we're going to review them and make sure that everything we are spending our dollars on is truly necessary and is truly part of an overall plan to continue Florida moving forward and being prosperous. As a Bay Area, you have a very strong delegation in both the House and Senate, and that's something that's very important to me. I think we need to maintain that type of cohesiveness among the members of the legislature that encompass what we call the Bay Area legislative delegation, which includes Sarasota, Manatee County, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Citrus, Hernando, Polk. I better say it right in case some Polk members hear me. Or I should say, as they say, Imperial Polk County. There we go, right? So, and we coalesced a few years back in working specifically with the Tampa Bay Partnership. It was, I think, my third term in the House, maybe the end of my second term. I have to give a lot of credit to the partnership and the leaders in the Tampa Bay area for recognizing that we had so much potential as a legislature from this area, representing close to 25% of the entire legislature. And yet, while we communicated, we weren't doing what we weren't maximizing our strengths. And other areas of the state seemed to have a leg up, frankly. We had more cohesiveness in South Florida, for example, for historically in the Panhandle and some other areas. And so in working with the leadership of the Tampa Bay Partnership, I'm pleased to say that we had a conversation, we being myself and the director then, and then the chair, and said, why don't we pull ourselves together and create real rules and create a real delegation that can come together and decide what is important for our area, what our priorities need to be, and to look at funding issues that are important to our area, and then very importantly to look at leadership in the House and Senate for people from our area. And so that was successfully put together, and we really changed the model. We went from a once-a-year social to a real delegation that met and had agendas. And in fact, when, do you know Allie Mattice from my office, when Bald's meeting next? Because some of you may want to, December 17th, 11th. So, and I'm pleased that it has continued to flourish. One of the first initiatives of the Bay Area Legislative Delegation was to pick up on what had been begun regarding a Tampa Bay Area Regional Transportation Authority. And that was something that had been recognized by leadership, business leadership, for a long time. And a little bit of history, because it's sort of a funny history, and maybe it was because I was naive that it came out this way, but Senator Sebesta, whom many of you may know, great leader and someone who also was very focused on the region and understood the value of coming together, not just within jurisdictional lines on a map, but across borders. But he was working and had been for some time on a stepped approach to a regional transportation planning entity. And in talking with some of my colleagues in the House and the Joe Smith in particular, who was very active with the partnership at that time, I said, well, why don't we just do what they did in the Panhandle, and we'll stick it on as an amendment in the House, and we'll be good to go. And so we went in the back of the chamber when the conference room, wrote it up, matched with Panhandle, and lo and behold, there it was. We got it on the transportation bill, and I think half the partnership and half the members in the Senate were like, wait, it's not supposed to be this easy. Anyway, it ended up not being that easy because because we still had to deal with the Senate. But then we came together as a Bay Area delegation, and we were all singing from the same hymnal. And we were successful in putting that together. And so we have created the entity, but there's work that needs to be done with it, because to maintain its autonomy, we need to have the funding. And I guess that's the tie-in to where I see the value in our ports, but it goes way beyond our ports. It's our transportation infrastructure that makes the difference. I think we all realize that if we have a common goal, if we share a common resource, it's the infrastructure in our region. That if I'm going to be valuable to someone in Hernando, or Tampa is going to be valuable to Lakewood Ranch, or vice versa, or any combination of those, it's going to be because we have arteries and methods and modes of transportation to move people freely within the region, people who will never see lines on a map, or for that matter care about them, but only see opportunity to earn a living or be creative, and then sanctuary in some other part of the region for their home or family. And so that was the genesis of that. So the idea was way beyond just roadways. It included the idea of rail and looking at it. And we, as in the legislature, are not engineers and planners. We just wanted to create opportunity. But part of that discussion was also our port system. And Florida has tremendous opportunity, not just in our area, but around the state with regard to our ports. And it's being recognized more and more. I mean, frankly, we are the gateway to the South Americas. We especially in this area have room for the type of infrastructure that I've just described to be a support to our port and the commerce that would come in and out of it. And having the port of Tampa to the north provides great opportunity if we would just work together to coordinate and maximize each other and bolster each other as we go forward. Enterprise Florida has a real international trade initiative, which I would like to see our budget include. I see the 5-minute mark there. In the House, we put in a timer, which would be all up on. Hey, there's my picture. That's if you want to see what I look like in high school. There's a picture. That's what they should do before and after 8 years in the Florida House. But anyway, I'll leave you with this. There are studies upon studies about the value of investing in infrastructure and in ports in particular. And I know one that has always resonated with me is that $1 that we put into our port system efficiently will yield close to $7 in return to the state of Florida and to our economy. And that's, when you talk about revenues and growth, those type of formulas are what we need to be focusing on, and those are the type of things that will bring us into 2013 and beyond. So thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be on this panel with such esteemed colleagues.
All right, so we have a few moments, if the senator agrees, for questions. And a gentleman from Imperial Polk County.
Thank you. I have some. Thank you. I have some concerns that I'm sure you do greatly also. That primarily is Medicaid and what Medicaid is going to do to our budget in the very near future, as a matter of fact. I think it's consumed about 1/3 of the budget at this point, and only promises to get worse. How are we going to deal with this problem?
Well, first of all, your concern is very appropriate. And I chaired healthcare committees for about 4 years before I became rules chair in the House, and we began back in '04 to try to address the growing Medicaid demand and the utilization, and that's when, under Governor Bush's leadership, we began with the managed care model, just to curtail the cost, because just like you've said, it's this is a Pac-Man in our budget that at that time was 15 years away from consuming our entire budget. And there's several things that factor into that, one of which is just the formula that exists in Washington. I mean, as a state, we get the short end of the stick because they're basing Medicaid allocations on a formula put together in the 70s based on criteria from the 30s. And if you look around the nation, when we put $1,000 into the Medicaid pot, we get substantially less than a state, for example, like Iowa. We could send memorials to Washington, which we have. They're as valuable as the paper they're written on because we don't vote in D.C. And unfortunately, there are a lot of states that are on the happy side of that inequity. So that's one thing that I continue to press our federal leaders for leadership on. The other aspect was we continued to move into a system that would control the cost. And fortunately, we had waivers to, or authorizations in layman's terms, to the federal government to help us get this under control. And we're making success in this, making progress in the state of Florida, and saw perhaps a potential for successfully controlling these costs. Enter the Affordable Care Act. That's the big variable now that has us concerned. And I understand that, yes. And so in the Senate, and I believe they have in the House, they actually have an independent standing committee to address the impacts of this transition. And the trick is going to be not in the short term, because in the short term, there are dollars committed. If you can have any faith right now of any dollars coming out of Washington, given what's going on. But there could be some very difficult long-term fiscal effects. And unless we can control it and recognize it for what it is, a safety net program, and curtail the utilization, that will continue to be the biggest consumer of our budget. So we're working every angle, but have not yet resolved it.
Senator, I'm Mike Meidel. I'm Economic Development Director in Pinellas County, and I agree the T-BARTA and the whole transit situation, the ports and the airport are a huge regional resource, and we work together with Mark and Sharon throughout the Tampa Bay area. The other one is to do with your new chairmanship and dealing with education as a regional resource. And I just wondered, in your new role as chair of the appropriations, do you have priorities that you've set personally for the coming session?
Well, I think my #1 priority, and he's talking about the Appropriations Subcommittee on Education. That includes in the Senate pre-K, early learning, through the K through 12, and then the university system. And it's a unique committee now because it's all under one umbrella. I'd have to say my first priority is to really strip down and look at where we're spending our dollars. And I share that priority with our full appropriations chair, Senator Negron, and with the president of the Senate. We have to build successfully for the future in difficult economic times, and with the hope of them getting better, we need to make sure what is recurring in the budget is what we need to succeed, and then of course what is not recurring is something that we should put in or not. So that's the first component. I've always believed that everything, good or bad, relates to whether or not you have an education or don't have an education. I mean, you can just go into a prison and test the literacy rates, or you could look at the pods throughout this nation where great advances are made in science and technology and biomedical research, and it's all at the base of it's all whether or not there's an education. So I'm going to push hard for funding, for efficient funding. I want to promote the sciences, if you will, and look at some of the job and career paths that have seemed prosperous in the past. And you know, another big aspect of what I'm looking at is how do we undo what seems to be this malaise of students who graduate from our university system only to go back home or somewhere not producing, not by their own desire, but because of a lack in the marketplace. 63% is the last figure I have. And so, you know, those are tough challenges, things that we need to work on. If I could make a pledge in that regard, it would be, you know, your high school diploma is going to really mean something. Your technical institute diploma in tech education is so important. It's going to mean something. It's going to have value to you. Your university degree, your state college degree are all going to have value. And I never want to hear another story like I heard this week from a young man who is president of a university student body council who said, you know, how do I get students to move on? A lot of them look at the job market and then call home and say, we're going to stay another semester or not. And it should be, you know, that excitement, that ready to run out the door, how many more days before my last exam because I want a career. And many of us in this room were like that.
Could I respond to that last comment you made?
Absolutely.
I would have all the SUS university systems have losing football teams 3 years in a row, and the kids will leave campus immediately. And that comes on personal experience. We'll take one more question.
Thank you for joining us. When it comes to education, are you getting much input from the private sector as how you draft your curriculum? Are you finding that our curriculum, that things the kids are being taught in school is really going to be relevant or equip them for the real world when they come out, whether at the high school level or the college level?
I think that's a great point. And first, in response, historically, no. That's my feeling, and then having served in the legislature, there's a lot of entrenchment in education, especially in K through 12, but it exists at the higher levels too. Second response is our goal is to do exactly that, to really focus on what you all need. I mean, you're the answer. You're the ones who are creating opportunity, and policy should follow your innovations and not lag behind.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I hope you enjoyed the program, and please come back again. Thank you.